has come to my attention that there is another Scrooge among us. It truly has been a good many years since I was last attempted, but it seems that 2024 was the year for it to happen. But oh my, what poor posture he has.
Silly old man.
Hello everyone, this is D1 here, and today we're going to be taking a good look at the 2 retail Scrooge animatronics known to have been made ever. And there's only 2 attempts, and we have on the right the Gemmy attempt for 2005 and the Seasonal Visions attempt for 2024. So as you can see there has been a big gap in time since attempts have been made. And I would say I was surprised to see a Scrooge at Home Depot this year, but given the Jack Frost from last year, it really wasn't all that surprising. But a lot of people seeing that probably had no idea that there was actually another Scrooge attempted many years ago. And they're very different takes, in my opinion, on Scrooge. Well, obviously they look very different, but overall it's just a very different take because of a few reasons. Well, there's actually several. As you can tell, it's very late in the night when I'm recording this. But I think this is the most accurate comparison that we could really get because, as many of you know, the Gemmy Scrooge was never produced, and these are both prototypes, both early prototypes. And sorry, my cat's talking to me. This just looks so different from the produced model, but I feel like they're accurate. Well, I feel like this is an accurate comparison because this is an early prototype, and what better way to compare than using an early prototype? Because I'm sure if this guy was produced, he would be pretty different in several ways, just like with the produced version of Scrooge at Home Depot this year. So I'm just going to go over the main differences. I'll get to personality more later when I do the demos, but basically this guy has a deeper, more intimidating voice, really grouchy sounding, and he really talks about real world stuff, and he's pretty straightforward. There's not too much sense of comedy going on. He says things that could be interpreted in a funny manner. He makes some modern references such as cardboard and other things that could be dated more to his historically accurate era, but it's more so almost kind of like actually the prototype Jimmy Santo, where it's very self-aware. He's very self-aware that he is in the modern era and he's not having it. So that's the take really with the personality on the SVI one. On the Gemmy one, it's really all about that eggnog. He's very sarcastic. This guy is very blunt and straight to the point, and maybe a little bit of sarcasm, but this guy, there's just sarcasm bouncing off the walls. He just makes some puns, and honestly, while he sounds annoyed the whole time, you can kind of tell that somewhere deep inside he's chuckling because some of the things he says are just quite hilarious, and it's just really a completely different take on the personality, because obviously these are 2 old kind of grouchy men with top hats, but it's just very different. And then when it comes to the physical build, obviously there's a lot of differences. So with the prototype aspects, this uses resin, and this one uses 3D printing. And some later prototypes might have used resin cast of the 3D prints, but this one is so early that it's just the 3D printed parts right off of the printer. And he has a latex face, and this one has a soft PVC face. So basically this one will smell like latex and it has the potential to dry rot over time. This one is not going to do that. Especially considering how really mistreated and abused this guy was. I don't remember, I'm pretty sure I go into a full depth explanation of just how mistreated this guy was for several years before I got him. And if he had a latex head, it would not be here today, that's for sure. So then you have the build, the internal build. This is obviously a pole-based assembly where you attach poles. There's a big rectangular prism-shaped control box that has the speaker, volume control, etc. Circuit board is inside that, along with just all the switches and everything. And this guy is a collapsing structure with the switches and circuit board, etc. in the base itself. The stature is very different. This guy has definitely got a bit of a hunch. He's built off of an old Jimmy Butler. And this guy is just really hunched forward. And if you haven't seen the video yet on just comparing this guy to the production model, then you'll be pretty shocked, because the production model is just really tall and he's kind of just looking down at you at a sharp angle. This guy is really hunched forward. So he's really in a position where it's like he is actively walking. You know, he's at that stature, or perhaps he's standing up in the wind. And so it's just a very different take, because the Gemmy Scrooge is rather upright in nature, and I know his hair looks a little weird in the back right now. It doesn't normally look like that. It's just how the clothing got adjusted or whatever. But he is more upright. He fits well into a corner, and this guy is more spaced out, if you will. So it does take a little more room and a little less convenience to display this guy, but he's indeed in a very different pose. So it just, again, comes down to, I don't know why I said again, but it really does come down to preference. And in production, you would have had a lot of injection molded plastic and vinyl and soft PVC here. These are vinyl live casted hands, and this would be a soft PVC mask or face. And this is a very well painted 3D print, and honestly is a pretty great 3D model for what it is. But this would be blow mold in production and would then lose a bit of the detail. There would be a seam. I will always just prefer a vinyl live casted or even sculpted hand over a 3D modeled hand pretty much any day. But for what this is, it's honestly very well done. But yeah, it just comes down to a preference thing, I suppose. Very different takes on the hands. These are just like normal hands, and these are very mangled looking. That's another thing, is he has kind of tattered, worn clothing. So another thing with the personality, I guess, you could have like a real cheapskate guy, and obviously Scrooge is inherently kind of a cheapskate, but you know, you could look at him carrying himself differently, because here, these are likely very old clothes for his time. He's had them for a while. There's, you know, little imperfections on it and some grime and whatnot. Not just snow. There's like little dark spots from who knows what, and some tattering around the bottom of the pants. And this guy is very classy, professional, well put together. Very different takes with that side of the personality. This guy is holding a very large and thorough lantern with a flickering candle on the inside. And this guy has a little candlestick, if you will, with the little area there to catch any drippings. And then he has a cane. And again, for the 3D model, instead of a sculpt, it's a very detailed cane. So that is impressive for it not being a clay sculpt. And again, it's just a very different take where, this guy requires a cane and has tattered clothes, and this guy is more put together. In production, this guy did get a scarf, kind of like that, but the earlier prototypes did not have it. You can see I haven't officially addressed this yet. There is snow all over him. This guy has no snow. I guess he's, been inside for a while or didn't go outside when it was snowing, but with this guy, it's quite the opposite. Definitely some inspiration taken for this guy by the Gemmy piece, or just some various live reenactments from the different films. You can see there's a very similar little black tie around his neck, very similar collar. He has a similar in nature vest. It's just this one is a dark green and this one is a kind of dull red, almost burgundy. And in production, this is a rather bright red. He has some gold buttons. He just has no buttons there, but there are a few buttons down here, and they're more of a standard looking button. These are like little metal gold ones with very nice little designs in there. And obviously, given that this was made much earlier on in the timeline of the world we're living in, he's going to be made with higher quality materials than this, given with all that inflation and everything. But those are some very, very snazzy buttons. Pinstripe pants, solid brown pants. There's some holly here, and in production there's some there. There is none of that on him. And then with the actual face. So this guy has some dark grayish skin in production. It's a rather bright gray, almost zombie-like in nature. He does have some blue eyes, and he has some nice painted lips and teeth. And you can see he's kind of frail looking. He doesn't really have any sideburns at all, but he has some hair. It's shorter hair though. And this guy has, and I should mention, sculpted on eyebrows that are painted a kind of bluish color, which I find interesting. It really helps bring out the eyes in a way, but it's very unique because not many people would have eyebrows like that. And this guy has actual, I don't know what to say, synthetic eyebrows. He has some sideburns as well, and then he has some rather long hair in the back. And a lot of Scrooge adaptations have it with the shorter hair, but with this guy it's longer. And I do think it's really cool how there's the sideburns, which are very trademark of several adaptations of Scrooge. This guy, animation-wise, moves his eyes, head, and mouth, and the lantern flickers constantly. This guy moves his mouth and head, and the candle flickers during the activations. And this guy sings a parody of Deck the Halls in a very, pessimistic, sarcastic manner. And he says several phrases, I don't remember how many. And this guy has his 5 or so phrases, and then a laughing track where he's just kind of mumbling to himself. And this guy's eyes do not light up. In production, his eyes don't light up, but at one point, his eyes did light up because inside the head there are some wires that go to nowhere, but they are wired with LEDs to the eyeballs. So a lot of it comes down to personal preference and which adaptation you prefer. But I'm going to go ahead and demo them. I'm going to play his song in 3 or so phrases, and then I'm going to do a few phrases with the SVI model. And I should add, there's still time. You can actually buy the produced model of the SVI Scrooge on HomeDepot.com, online only, for only $99 free shipping, with tax, of course. pretty stellar bargain, I must say. And in a few days here, I'm sure that it'll get even lower. That's as of me filming this right now. I don't know when this is actually going to go up. But I'm going to go ahead here and plug the Gemmy one in, and we will get through his activations first. So you can see upon plugging him in, the candle is flickering. And here we go.
Deck the halls with rotten house guests. Fruitcake that you'll never digest. Don you now your tacky sweaters. Only eggnog makes it better. La 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 la. Ha. There's only one thing I like about Christmas, and I've been drinking it since noon. What would I like for Christmas? I'd like it to go away.
And then some of the phrases are spoken in a drunken manner, so he skips over a word or two.
Here's hoping the spirit of the season moves you right out the door. If I am to make it through this season with my sanity intact, it's going to take a lot of eggnog.
So you can see there's a real big focus on the eggnog. You have the parody song and all of that jazz. But I really like this guy, and I actually do like this guy as well. They have their pros and cons. And let me just say, the prototype is painted so well. It's honestly very professional looking. And I'm going to plug into the SVI model, and we'll get through a few of those phrases. He also has an infrared sensor, and this guy would have just a light sensor and sound sensor.
Everyone is being so chill. Ah, now they're singing together. Humbug! Don't spill your kindness and compassion onto me. What is with all of these festivities? Does anyone want to work anymore? And who do you think is going to pay the electricity bill? Turn those lights off! All this goodwill towards my fellow man nonsense? Nonsense! Ooh, and all this infernal carol singing. All this happy merrymaking has driven me to madness. Shoo! Away from me! What is that insulting smell? Fruitcake? Gingerbread cookies? Bleh! How disappointing! Thanks, but I'd rather eat soggy cardboard. Bah! Cut it out with all the sugar and sparkles, would you?
You can see that the candle illuminates his face, which this one does not do as much because it's lower down.
All these companies giving additional days off and Christmas bonuses? Bah! You expect to start at the top and retire instead of working your way up like I did? You folks are just lazy.
And one thing about the SVI one is he's just goofily resetting there. Sometimes the palm of his neck will stick out. With this one, the collar could be put a little tighter. But
tomorrow. I don't care if it is Christmas. They should have thought about that and paid on time. It isn't personal, it's just business.
This guy also has a really sour expression on his face. And this guy, he just kind of looks like he's up to no good. Again, very different takes on the personality of these guys. But I guess now we'll play them both at the same time. And he does have volume control, so if he gets overpowered in any way by the Gemmy one, just know you can't adjust that.
Everyone is being so chill. Ah, now they're singing together. Humbug! Don't spill your kindness and compassion on
Deck
me.
the halls with rotten house guests. Fruitcake that you'll never
What is with all
digest.
these festivities?
Don't you know
Anyone
your
want to work
tacky
anymore?
sweaters?
Only
Only eggnog makes it better.
Oh,
La 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 la. Ha.
all this goodwill towards
There's
my
only one thing
nonsense.
I like about
Nonsense.
Christmas. And I've been drinking
And all
it
this
since noon.
infernal carol singing. All this happy merrymaking has driven me to madness. Shoo! Away from me!
What would I like for Christmas? I'd like it to go away.
What is that insulting smell? Fruitcake? Gingerbread cookies?
Here's hoping the spirit of the season moves you right out the
But
door.
I'd rather eat soggy cardboard. Ah! Cut it out with all the sugar and sparkles.
There's a look
would
at
you?
their candles.
If I am to make it through this season with my sanity intact, it's going to take a lot of eggnog.
All these companies giving additional days off and Christmas bonuses? Bah! You expect to start at the top and retire instead of working your way up like I did? You folks are just lazy.
Oh, goody. Another fruitcake. Why don't you go meet yourself under the mistletoe? Why, yes, you are the life of the party. The cheese log has more personality.
Send out the eviction notices.
If I ever had any
I
goodwill
don't care
toward
if
men,
it is Christmas.
Christmas has drained me of
Talk
it.
about that and paid on time. It isn't personal, it's just business.
So yeah, there they are. Two very different takes on Scrooge, two items that are built very differently, but they're very unique from each other. And, me personally, I will always prefer, maybe it's just a bias, but I'll always prefer, when it comes to just a 6-foot character, the older builds. But for a modern item, this is executed very well in my opinion. And sure, he could have more movements, maybe move one of the arms, or even have some of the advanced servo movements and have like a TPR face or a saw PVC face instead of latex. But for what he is very well done. And obviously this guy is excellent. Now, unfortunately, the produced Scrooge you can get at homedepot.com this year is not as awesome as this. It has the same audio, same general look, but very different creative liberties. You have a bright red vest, bright red strap around the hat. He's much taller. He's like almost pushing 7 foot with the hat. You can see these guys are relatively about the same height with their hats. And it's just a very different adaptation of this piece. Now, obviously, if this guy was produced like this, I think he would have been a really big bestseller. But unfortunately, changes were made, and in production, it's just hard to mimic that, the paint detail, for example, with the prototype process. But yeah, comment down below which one of these guys do you think is the better piece? Which of them would you rather display? I've been displaying the Gemmy one in this corner right here in my indoor display, and don't know what to do with this guy in terms of display, but he would look great down here as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this comparison. This is a very unique comparison you won't find anywhere else, so be sure to like and subscribe, as taboo as that sounds, and there will be more awesome animatronic content to come from this channel. And this has been a great year for this channel. It's grown very well. I've uploaded over 300 videos. I've had a daily streak going for many months now, and I'm just very thankful for all of it. And I hope you guys are thankful as well. But I'll see you in the next one, and hope you have, or depending on when this comes out, hope you have or have had a wonderful Merry Christmas.